I did a week-long cleanse at a Polish health clinic, and I can't wait to tell you all about it. First up, let's back up in the story, and I want to tell you a little bit more about my summer. So this is the fourth summer I've now spent in Europe, and I just feel so incredible, grateful, and lucky to be able to say so, because it took a lot of hard work to get here. For 10 years, my husband and I worked 9-to-5 jobs and felt so limited in our ability to travel. We were not able to book a trip, to book flights, to do anything because we had to always look at the limited time off we had and sometimes even ask permission from our bosses before we could take off. It was annoying. I had 10 days off a year for a long time, and then thankfully it increased a little bit more, but my husband never had really much more than that. So even if I did have a little bit more time, it was hard to travel because we couldn't do it together. This went on for so many years of our relationship, so many vacations and trips that were so hard to plan and so annoying that we couldn't extend it by just 1 or 2 days to go to this incredible city because we had to rush home and get back to work. It was just really annoying. And so when I launched my business, one of the biggest motivators I had to grow it was I want the freedom. I want the freedom to be able to travel whenever I want. I don't want to have to ask a boss for time off. I don't want to have to, accrue time to be able to take this limited little window. I see life as this ability to enjoy and really have beautiful experiences and not wait until you're a certain age to be able to truly live. And the way that we just kind of put our heads down and work so hard and barely have any time off and then try to see the world when we retire, well, how many stories have you heard of people who literally pass away before they're ever able to actually do that? That's not the kind of life I wanted to live. And so I was thankfully I was able to leave my day job back in 2020. Now, this was about a year and a half after growing my business, and I kind of worked really hard to get the foundation set and to start getting clients in, and then I just took a leap of faith. I do recommend you not do it right away, right when you start your business, because there is some setup work. There is a foundation that you need to build, but there was a point where I needed to just jump and expect and know that my business would grow with it. That was amazing, right? So that was in 2020, and I started traveling, but it was also the pandemic. And so my trips were kind of limited. I think Mexico was the only place that was really open that I could go to. And I also quickly realized that this dream of traveling the world and having all of this freedom didn't really work if my husband wasn't able to do it too. And so a new dream, right? What if I grow the company big enough to support both of us? What if I am able to bring him on as a partner and have him retire his corporate job? Now, this was something that I worked so hard to do as well. We both did. And in 2022, we made the exit. He quit his job and we spent 3 months in Europe that summer. It was divine. Now, I actually share the full story of how I did this and how we did this together in another episode called How I Retired My Husband. I do recommend you check it out. But basically, ever since then, now we've been able to travel the world together. He comes to retreats with me. We go to Asia together. And I love traveling everywhere. I love Asia. I love Latin America. I love going to new bucket list places, like Antarctica's on my bucket list. But there's something about a European summer that I just cannot deny. That is where I want to be every single summer. And so that's how we spent this summer as well. This year we spent 6 weeks in Europe, and I'm going to get to the story of how I did the Polish health cleanse, but let me just back you up into what happened before then. So we actually flew into Paris so that we could lead my Thought Leader Mastermind. This was such an incredible experience. An incredible group of thought leaders came together in Paris. We masterminded in a chic salon. We went out to fancy dinners. It was such a vibe. But to, move the story along, we started our trip right after that. And from there, we went to Rome. Now, I am not in love with big cities in the summertime. Europe is getting hotter and hotter every single year, and these big cities are just not viable sometimes in the summertime. It is just way too hot, way too stuffy. There's so many tourists. Obviously, I'm a tourist too, but we flew to Rome to start our Italian adventure because I knew I wanted to get to the Mediterranean as soon as possible. In Rome, it actually wasn't that bad because there was a little bit of clouds and a little bit of rain, a sun as well, but it just didn't make it as crazy hot as it could have been. So we were able to manage and we're able to sightsee. We did a really fun pasta tour, which was cool. We had cacio and pepe and carbonara, and we watched the chef make it in front of us and some historic places that we visited. And then I booked it to the Mediterranean. I love swimming. I love the sea. I love the ocean. I'm not like a competitive swimmer who swims laps with a cap and goggles. I'm a leisurely swimmer, right? I do the frog. But there's something so rejuvenating about being in an open body of water. I love the sea. I love the ocean. I love the feeling of salt water on me. I feel like salt water, and I know this for some scientific studies as well, like it heals parts of your bodies. They have studies that actually show that most marine animals do not get cancer. So being in salt water is incredibly good for you. But I also live by the Pacific Ocean, which has the biggest waves of all the oceans in the world. Fun fact, I recently learned that the larger the surface area that wind can travel across the ocean will make the biggest waves. So the bigger an ocean or sea will produce the biggest waves versus a smaller. So the Mediterranean obviously is a smaller sea. Yes, it's wavy, it can be, there can be storms and all that kind of stuff, but mostly in the summer in a lot of different areas, you can find really smooth, really calm waters. The Pacific Ocean is so different from that. We have huge waves. They can get really, really big in certain parts and certain beaches. And it's also really cold. It's one of the coldest oceans. It gets the currents from Alaska, so it's not heating up in the summer that much either, which is why I love to go to Europe for the summertime. I love swimming in the Caribbean or in Southeast Asia, but there's just something about the Mediterranean that calls to me every single summer. So we went to the Amalfi Coast. It was totally a dream. I thought it'd be really overloaded with too much tourists, but I found it not to be that bad. We actually stayed in Amalfi town, and a lot of people stay in Positano, so I didn't feel like we got the worst of it being overcrowded. And a lot of people come just for day trips because they're on a ferry or they're on a tour or a cruise ship, so it actually really emptied out at night. It was really cool because there's just lemon groves everywhere there. Like they don't grow wine, they grow lemons everywhere. And my husband and I would walk around. We got to the very top of the town. I think it was like 500 steps to get there. And there was just like lemon groves everywhere. It was so pretty. The view of the ocean from there. I swam so much. Like I love to swim, obviously. So every day I was swimming as much as possible. And I had a lot of lemon sherbet as well. So they had this like really good lemon ice cream that they put back into a lemon. It was just so glorious. After that, we actually rented a car and drove over Italy to get to the other side of the coast of Puglia. Now, this is a lesser known region. It gets a lot of Italian tourists, but not as many Americans right now. And it is beautiful. The coast is gorgeous. It's a little drier, I think, than other parts of Italy. It has more of like a Croatian vibe to it as well, and it has some like really cute old towns as well. I think it's also a poorer region. We saw like the highways weren't as well maintained, and some of the cars driving on the highways were definitely old to school. Like we called them little eggs. Everyone had like a little egg car, but it was still so delightful to visit. We went to this really cute town called Polignano al Mare. And while we were staying there, we were so lucky. There was this incredible Red Bull cliff diving competition, like a world competition with Olympics sport divers that would just come in and dive in front of us for competition and a championship. And we had no idea we would be there for that. It was totally random. And so the guys were dumping off of 30 meters, which I don't know exactly, maybe that's like 60 feet or something. It's basically so high that if you don't like land so straight in, even by a millimeter or two, you could like snap your neck and go paralyzed. So these people definitely know what they're doing. The women's dive was really, really cool too. And it was just so cool to be able to be there for that. We had really affordable pizza and pasta and like seafood everywhere we went. And from there, we wanted to go to Slovenia. So thank God there was a flight from Bari, which wasn't too far from us where we were staying. We also went down to Otranto and Lecce, just really explore that area, to Trieste. And I thought we could rent a car in Trieste because it's right on the border of Slovenia, and then be able to just use that same car as we drive around Slovenia. But this is something that I've learned multiple times now. Every time I'm planning a trip to Europe, the car rental companies do this crazy upcharge when you want to drive a car from Western Europe to Eastern Europe or vice versa. So to rent a car in Italy and drive it into Slovenia, they wanted to charge us like an extra $3,000. So I dropped that idea. We land in Trieste, we stay one night there, but then we ended up hiring and finding this really cute shuttle company that gets us over to Slovenia without the hassle, because there weren't trains, there weren't like another formal city bus or anything like that. So I'm really glad that they had that amenity. We stay in the cutest little town on the coast of Slovenia. Slovenia has a really small coast. It's in between Italy and Croatia, so those countries have the bigger coastline, but it does have a small coast and it looks a lot like Croatia. So the town we stayed in had like a Venetian feel, but then also like the Croatian Dubrovnik style buildings, and it was just so pretty. We went swimming there. We ate really, really good seafood, just kind of like not hole in the wall, but just these undiscovered places that like there isn't a bunch of tourists coming here. In fact, the most tourists that we saw there were from Austria, and not from the US, not from other places, Austria. So I guess a lot of people from Austria come down to the start of the coast in Slovenia. From there, we drove up to Lake Bled, which is one of the most famous sites in Slovenia. And we just hiked around. We went to the national park there. We stayed in this really glorious hotel, like right overlooking on the water. We had just delicious breakfast. And then from there, we went to Ljubljana. I don't think I said that right. Ljubljana. It's a hard one to say. Cute little capital. And then we flew to Warsaw. So my family's from Warsaw. All of my aunts, uncles, my grandparents used to live there. Obviously, they're passed now. My cousins live there. My whole family basically is in Warsaw, Poland. And we spent about a week there just visiting with family, visiting some sites. I went to a few new museums that I hadn't been to before. And Warsaw is just a city that I like to exhale in. Like it's the second city for me, right? It's part of my childhood. It's something I've visited so many times. And even every time I go, I still have more to visit. I have more to see. They're always building new stuff. They're really hipster city. They have like really cool night markets and little festivals, and they turn these old factories into food halls. Like it's just hip, right? And then from there, we go on to our Polish cleanse in the mountains of Poland. So this is the meat of the story. This was the most intense thing I've probably ever signed up for. Now, if you don't know, me and my husband are on a fertility journey. I also have some podcast episodes where I share and break down that journey too. But this health spa basically had helped people with fertility before. They also help with things like cancer, diabetes, because basically we were on a vegetable-only diet. And we also had programs of different exercise and health activities that we're supposed to do. It was kind of like a retreat, but like without a leader, and way focused on these European health practices that I had never ever heard of. So fun fact, we go to Karpacz, so that is in the western side of Poland in the mountains. And this is actually exactly where Wim Hof hosts his winter retreat. So when it gets wintertime and it starts snowing, that's where he hosts one of his cold immersion retreats in Karpacz. It's so funny. We walked by the hotel that he hosts it at, and then they actually climb to the highest mountain there and do it like in their boxers and in their bras and stuff like that. So I didn't even know that before we went there, but Karpacz is this really cute town. All mountain towns in Poland have this delicious smoked cheese, but obviously the moment we get there, we can't eat anything from the outside. So we get into this health clinic, and it's so interesting because Poland has this like sense of like new modernness, but you can always tell the communist like roots and the communist pasts of things. So, you know, this health resort was probably built in the 90s. It's not that old. It's not like a communist old resort. But like there's that kind of feeling of the cafeteria, and, you know, back in the day in the communist era, you didn't get like pay increases, and you only got promotions if you were actually in the Communist Party. And so a lot of ways that they were able to reward workers back then was by sponsoring vacations for them. So there's all these like old school communist resorts around Poland where, okay, you know, you worked for us really hard for a year, now spend 2 weeks by the sea in this place. So there's still that kind of feeling at this place, but obviously it's still more modern, and it's supposed to be just this, you know, modern place that they have put in so many advanced therapies of what's going to help heal disease or any kind of chronic metabolic issues in place in one. Like they had an oxygen hyperbaric chamber, they have different lymphatic massage techniques, they have a doctor on site, a dietitian on site. So we arrive, and obviously everything's in Polish. My husband doesn't speak Polish, so everything's on me. Now I'm totally fluent in Polish, but I have to say with a caveat, I know the Polish that my parents spoke to me in the household. So if they weren't talking about something, I might not know the words or the vocabulary for it. This means that really technical terms I might not know, really advanced terms, just things you wouldn't speak around in a household, sometimes are lost on me. So we check in, and we're supposed to go see the doctor right away and tell her about what we're here for, tell her, you know, our different health conditions, all the things that were going on. And then they prescribe basically a schedule for us for the week. And they print it all out, and both of us have no idea what we're doing. So we have our schedule. I think it starts at 7:50 is the first activity, and it goes to 7 p.m. every single day. And basically every 30 minutes to every hour is accounted for with all these different health activities. And most of them, I either like don't understand the meaning behind, or they're words that I literally have never heard of before. I'm like, okay, this will be interesting. So we go to our first dinner, And our vegetable cleanses started, right? We're not eating anything other than vegetables. There's no oil that anything is cooked in with. There's no starches either. So even though potatoes and sweet potatoes and bananas and all that kind of stuff is still considered like a vegetable or a fruit, none of that stuff, right? And our first dinner, I think, is a vegetable soup, a vegetable salad, and a little side plate of vegetables. We're like, great. And then the Polish cooking style is interesting too, because they don't use spices like curry or, anything spicy or anything with like, chipotle or something like that. It's just like dill or parsley. Everything's flavored with either dill or parsley. So we get into our first day, we wake up in the morning, and at first, my husband doesn't want to do any of the activities that are on our schedule. He's like, I did not sign up for this, because the very first thing we're supposed to do is called gymnastics. Now, it's not really gymnastics. That's just what Polish people call kind of like doing aerobics. But we're supposed to go outside at 7:50 and go do some gymnastics out in the morning air. And my husband's like, I did not sign up for this. Now, I have to say we're there for our fertility, and we do have male factor infertility issues. And so I'm like, yes, you are. This is exactly what you're doing. This is why we're doing it. And so I was just so astounded actually that he said yes and he did it all. And a lot of the things are things that make you feel awkward or weird, but we did the gymnastics in the morning. And then right after that, we have breakfast. So I'm not sure what to expect for breakfast on a vegetable only cleanse, but we sit down and they put together like a green soup in front of us. And that's it. That's breakfast. A green soup and some salad next to us. With that, we are allowed some barsh. Now, barsh is a Polish beetroot soup, but with this one, it's not like a normal barsh. They actually put some kind of sour agent. So I'm not sure exactly about the diet and the principles of what it commands for other than vegetables, but I know they put in a lot of sour elements, and I'm pretty sure the sour elements are supposed to help with your gut. So there's like a lot of pickles, a lot of pickled things, and so the beet soup is completely pickled as well. It's actually refreshing, and just knowing that we have something other than just the green soup for breakfast and this little like side salad, and the salad obviously doesn't have dressing. It's all just pickled stuff, right? So like maybe pickled carrots, pickled, whatever. And so we start our day off, we have the breakfast, we go to our next thing, which is now water gymnastics. Again, one of those awkward things that you're like, what am I signed up for here? I've never done water gymnastics before. I guess in English we'd call it water aerobics. I've never tried anything like that. And I actually have a lot of fun. So does my husband. They give us like different props to use so that you're using the weight of the water to almost do strength training. It's really fun. And also aerobics. Obviously it helps with a lot of mobility issues. Now, a lot of the people that came to the resort and retreat, you can just stay there as a hotel, so they do have normal food. But the people who were doing the diet too, we formed like this little special group, right? We're the separate ones of the retreat center, the hotel center, and we formed this little special group who has all these activities and who has this special diet. A lot of people are in their midlife, some people a little older than that too, so that's why obviously they cater to different mobility issues for people with like the water aerobics and stuff like that. And it's just interesting to get to know everyone, why they're there. Some people are there to lose weight. Some people there have like a chronic condition that they're looking to heal. I know one of my uncles did it actually because he has diabetes. So it's just really, really interesting to meet with people and talk to people. And most of it's all in Polish. And actually, thank God we sat next to this lady who actually lived in Great Britain. So my husband was able to make a friend and speak to someone in English. Because even though a lot of people speak English in Poland, in really small towns, it's less heard of, right? So a lot of the staff couldn't speak any English and wasn't really able to help my husband. He would have to like point or mime at things and say that he's here for this or that. Okay, moving on. We do our water gymnastics. And then there's a few health practices that I just never heard of before. So every day we do something called an aquatizer. And I guess it's just like a water massage. And they had all kinds of water massage there. So this was one where you don't get wet, you sit on a bed, and then the bed is getting shot up by this water stream. And so it's massaging your body. And we had to do this like 2 or 3 times a day so that we're making sure that the lymph is flowing, that we're detoxing properly, that, we're just moving things around in the body. But it was really interesting how it wasn't like a formal massage, and it wasn't a formal like water massage either, because they had special rooms just for that. We just didn't elect to do that, where they actually shoot you with like a fire hose of water. After that, we do something that my husband and I had never heard of called fungal. I don't even know what it is when I look it up, but we go to this room not knowing what to expect at all, and then they tell us to get like undressed from the waist up, and they put this dark loaf of mud on us. And it wasn't like wet mud. It was like a solid sheet of mud. And once we started looking it up and trying to figure out what the heck it is, I guess it's apparently some kind of lava rock that they smash together into a sheet that is supposed to be really good at extracting impurities from your skin and also really soothing muscles. So you could do it on your back, but you could also do it anywhere where you had muscle soreness and stuff like that. So I did it a few times on my upper back. I did it a few times on my lower back as well. Some people would do it on their knees or their thighs. And it was just so fascinating to me because there's this culture of like health cleanses and spa culture in Europe that I don't think we have at all in the United States. When I was little, I remember going to this health spa town that was really world renowned for its mineral waters. And, there even used to be a saying that you take to the waters when you're ill. And it's really fascinating because this old school kind of way of healing your body and eating well and getting outside and taking to the waters used to be a really big part of how we would treat medical diseases. And only in the last 150 years with the modern kind of medical system did we stop doing stuff like that. Now it's fascinating because obviously the modern medical system is really good at getting any kind of acute things. Like obviously if you break your leg, you want to go to the hospital, you don't want to go take to the waters. But it's some of these like more chronic issues that the modern medical system is still just as stumped on and not sure how to heal. And a lot of things got thrown in as like, oh, well that doesn't work, or that's just witchcraft, instead of looking at what can we learn from this old school practice that actually used to help a lot of people. And it makes a lot of sense for me because say that you were living in like completely polluted London in the 1800s. It's hard to breathe. Like the air is completely brown and you're going to work every single day and it is just not a good existence. It's smelly, the hygiene isn't very good, and you're coughing up a lung, like it's just not very good for you. And so then you have this spa town where you go take to the waters and you get out of this like old, dusty, polluted town and you go into the mountains or you go to the sea. And all of a sudden you're breathing fresh air. And all of a sudden you're drinking these mineral waters and you're bathing in these mineral waters. And all of a sudden you're going on walks more often and you're eating really, really healthy food. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that just the lifestyle that you can get in one of these spa cultures is so different from the old way. It's like really, truly taking care of your body in a new way. And I'm so interested in this stuff because I feel like it's a lost art. I feel like we don't have it in the US at all anymore. It still exists in Germany. It still exists in places like Hungary and Poland. I'm sure there's other places too, but it's just this lost art we don't have in the healing lens anymore here in the States. But what's fascinating, I learned, is that we used to take to the waters in the US all the time too. We also had these spa towns. We also had hot mineral baths and, different health practices that we would do that would help heal our lymphatic system and our immune system in different ways than we do today. And I learned that they completely bulldozed over it, that basically they almost got rid of all that kind of stuff in the US in the like 1900s, and that we don't really have that many remnants of that kind of stuff anymore. So part of my interest in doing this like cleanse at this Polish health clinic wasn't just obviously to detox and learn about that, but it was also to experience this like lost culture, this long lost part of European healing that we don't really have in the US anymore in these practices. And so this fungo is like a perfect example of something that I'd never heard of. I've never seen done anywhere else before. And I'm like, what is this? Like, let's go for it. And there's also a lot of like regenerative medicine that happens, and there's a lot of studies that are happening around these practices that help you regenerate and heal faster, whether it's through stem cells or just different practices. And there's some things that are becoming legal faster in Europe than they are in the United States. So I'm not saying it's always more up and coming than the US, but to me, I'm just fascinated by it. So it was really, really cool to be there to see all of the different options they had for you. After fungo, we would have lunch. Lunch is actually dinner in Polish. The big meal is served earlier, and that's when we would have 3 dishes. So we got to have a vegetable soup, we got to have a vegetable salad, and we had a plate of vegetables. Sometimes they would try to make it look like something that you want to eat, like they would cut beets into like making them look like fries, or they would make little balls that look like falafels, but they were not falafels, they were just vegetable mash. And other times it would just be a plate of steamed vegetable. Now, one thing that got really annoying is I was saying that Polish people, they cook with not all the spices of the world, but the 2 big things that they use to season food with is dill and parsley. Now, I didn't know how much I hated parsley until I was there. There were some days where I literally couldn't even eat the salad because there was so much parsley on it. Something happened, like when I was a kid, I used to not be able to eat mushrooms and parsley and dill, like just a lot of things. But as I got older, most of my aversions to food changed and I didn't really have them anymore. I didn't even think I was sensitive to parsley anymore until I went here, until I was getting parsley sprinkled on all of my food. Now, by the time we get to day 2, day 3, we're starving, right? We feel lack of energy. You know, if you've ever been on a cleanse or a detox, it's supposed to get bad and then it gets a lot better. And so by the time we're in that bad phase, the day 2, day 3, every time I look at a salad made with parsley, I'm like, I cannot. And I'm so hungry that you know that's the only calories you're gonna get for the day. But like sometimes I just couldn't finish it. The parsley was so gross. Or I would spend like a whole hour literally taking out every little bit of parsley that I saw. And it would just like my plate looked like this like canvas where it was just speckled with parsley everywhere. It was so funny. So moving forward, usually we had time to go on a walk or do some work in the afternoon. When the weather was good, we would go on walks, and that was really fun because we were in this glorious mountain town, so we could go to a national forest and go walking, and even just if you're not in the national forest, like official section, just beautiful. Like Poland has these gorgeous forests where not only do they mix pine, but there's also the deciduous trees as well. So just absolutely beautiful, beautiful views. And just that smell of freshness and just, you know, that whole feeling, that effervescent feeling of I'm in a spa healing town and this is what I'm doing. We would come in for dinner, and then after dinner we would have again, you know, more vegetables. You know, there wasn't ever a dessert. Actually, at lunch sometimes they gave us a dessert and it would be like a little bit of fruit, like 3 cherries or like a little piece of like an orange or something like that, because it was mostly a vegetable diet. But then after that, I would often go to the sauna because the whole point of the cleanse is to really just detox and get out any kind of bad toxins inside of you. So it was really fun. They had a gorgeous sauna there, gorgeous pool, gorgeous like jacuzzi, but I would just go to the sauna. Usually what I do when I sauna is if I'm in a dry finish sauna, which is the hottest one, I would do 3 15-minute sessions in and then come out and take a really ice cold shower and then rest. So I would do that 3 times. And that would take up to, you know, an hour and a half. And then you're literally, after that, you're just ready for bed. It's just time to go. And then we did it again and again and again for multiple days in a row. Now on day 5, my husband and I start to kind of regain our energy. Day 2 is probably the worst, but day 5, we feel a little bit better. The weather's holding up. So we decide to hike the highest peak there. Now, this is actually the highest peak in Czech Republic because it shares the border between Czech and Poland. It's not the highest peak in Poland, but it's a high peak for that area. And we're like, okay, let's do it. So we just have no idea what we're walking into. You know, the first half of the path is really easy. It's just kind of like a little bit of an incline on this flat path. And we're like, okay, this isn't that bad. Everywhere we go, though, we're seeing people with all these snacks and baked potatoes, and there's even little restaurants along the path selling, like, you know, hot dogs and kielbasas and stuff like that, and we're just starving. So we get to this halfway point and everything changes. The rest of the hike gets so freaking hard. You're now scaling a mountain, like climbing up huge rocks, almost like you're climbing stairs, but obviously not even ones and really, you know, slippery sometimes. Like it is actually very, very hard. My husband and I are worried that if we don't hike this mountain fast enough, we're actually going to miss our dinner, which is lunch in Poland. And we are scared that we are going, if we miss it, that we just won't have that food, that like the measly calories that we're eating, like we need to actually get our lunch in or else we're screwed. And so we are trying to get up this mountain as fast as possible. Also with no energy, also watching all these people around us that are hiking with little bread snacks and little salamis and all this like food that we can't eat. And so every single time I want to rest, my husband's like, let's keep going, keep going, keep going. Come on, we have a time to do. And so we get up to this other point. It's still not the top of the mountain. And then we finally climb to the very, very top, take pictures. It has kind of a cloudy, you know, thing going on, so you can't really see the views. But we've made it. We feel so good. We're pretty sure we're going to miss our meal, but it was worth it. And then we start our walk down, and we just, the clouds are really clear up, and we start just taking the most beautiful content. It's so pretty, just the forest there, the paths, like they're rocky. Like streams are everywhere. It was just so, so pretty, and I'm so proud of ourselves. I think it was a 2 or 3,000 feet incline that we did from like start to finish, and a 11-mile hike. So 11 miles on nothing but vegetables for the previous like 5 days. I am pretty freaking proud of ourselves. I am not really a hiker. I'm more of a walker. Once it starts going uphill, I'm not as happy anymore, but I'm so proud of ourselves. And we actually make it back to the resort. And even though we're 2 or 1.5 hours late for dinner, they actually will feed us anyway. So we're just so happy, scarf down more vegetables and keep on going. Keep on going for the, the water massagers, the fungo. We try this hyperbaric oxygen chamber. It's also something that's kind of part of it too. And that was really interesting because they had all these different health services that you could pick and choose. And even though our days were already pretty busy, they had some optional things that we could add on. So we decided to try a few things. And so this hyperbaric oxygen chamber is so interesting because I don't know what to expect, but I'm like, okay, you just sit there, right? And I'm kind of a wimp. So if something is going to be painful or in the slightest bit like medically scary, like I don't want to do it, So I'm like, okay, this sounds easy. You're just going to sit in this room with like more oxygen in it. No big deal, right? But before we can get into that room, we have to depressurize first. So I'm also claustrophobic, and they put us in this teeny little room. It's me, my husband, and the like service staff is with us to make sure that like we don't die or something. It's like they can't leave us alone in there. So we basically go into this like decompression chamber, and it's basically almost like you're flying in a plane, like the way that the pressure changes and your ears start popping. And it's just really, really weird. And you have to be in there for 5 minutes before you can move on to the next room. And that's where I'm kind of like, okay, Carolina, just stay calm. Don't hyperventilate. Don't like get scared of the claustrophobia. Everything's fine. Like nothing's happening. The pressure's just changing, right? And then thankfully we're able to go into the oxygen room, which is much bigger. And then we can sit there. It's an hour long. You can just read and just breathe in really, really deep oxygen. That's really helps cleanse your lungs and so many other health benefits that I know other people were using it for too. When we get out, we also have to go through the hyperbaric oxygen chamber through the decompression thing again. So we decompress again with the staff member, making sure we're okay, making sure none of us wants to faint or anything like that. And you know how when sometimes they build something up as to be a little like, okay, you have to have some precaution here, you kind of get a little bit more worried than warrants it. So that's kind of how I felt about it, but we made it through, everything was fine. And onwards to more fungo, more aquatizer, more pool gymnastics. And that's how we spent the whole week, hiking, doing these, Polish health rituals, eating nothing but vegetables, eating a lot of parsley. I called both my mom and my aunt to tell them about how I didn't like the parsley, and they both said the same exact thing. Oh, but parsley has a lot of vitamin C. Like, as if I didn't know, right? This like beautiful herb that everybody should eat. But we also get to the end, and we're so proud of ourselves for doing it. I know I don't want to go back to eating completely normal food because I want to keep up some of it. So I decided to continue cutting out gluten and like wheat products and sugar for the most part as best I can until, a few more weeks or so. But we do get out of it, and we go back to Warsaw after that, and we go out to a celebratory Vietnamese dinner. It's actually our favorite place in Warsaw is a Vietnamese restaurant. I love it. It's one of our favorite Vietnamese restaurants in the whole world. And it's pretty healthy food because, most Southeast Asian food is like a lot of herbs, like a protein and vegetables and stuff like that. So start off with that. But then we're also traveling for a few more days, so we kind of have to just eat whatever we can. So I know on the flight back, we're flying back to the US at that point, we had pierogi, which are the Polish dumplings. They're so delicious, but they weren't part of like how I wanted to, continue my cleanse. But we get home and we notice we both lost about 10 pounds of weight or so. My husband feels great. He looks great. We're both really still sore from the hiking and stuff like that, but it was overall a really fun experiment. I'm glad we tried it. I'm glad we did it. I know something like that in the US would only be reserved for the ultra, ultra, ultra wealthy. It just felt like everything we got for the value for all the food, all the activities, all the massages, all the saunas, all the like specifically catered for you meals, all the different health treatments, all of it would have just been impossible, I think, to do in the United States. Like I've looked in some centers in San Diego and like Malibu, and those are like the ultra premium celebrity style places, you know what I mean? So super cool and interesting. We actually went on recommendation from my mom because she'd heard of it. She'd done it before too. A few members in my family have done this diet as well. So it's just really interesting to learn. And they kind of recommend that, if you really wanted to heal something, like if you had a cancer diagnosis or a diabetes or something like that, if you did this diet for 6 weeks, like you would see huge, huge differences. There's actually a few books about it. It's not about eating vegetables only for the rest of your life. Obviously, you need protein, you need carbs, all that kind of stuff, but it's about just doing a really massive cleanse and really, really, doing that autophagy where your cells, the bad cells, die off and then you can regenerate new cells, which has just been proven to heal a lot of different conditions. So that was really fun. We met some really interesting people when we were there. We hiked a mountain and I'm so glad we did it. It was at the very end of our trip. So the only problem with that was that we did most of the trip eating as much ice cream as we wanted to and a lot of pizza and pasta because we were in Italy. We try not to eat as many, gluten-based products at home. But when in Italy, like you had to just eat it. So I probably lost the weight that I'd already gained while I was traveling anyways, but it was just a really fun experience and I'm really glad we did it. And we got home and ever since then, I do feel like we've kind of done this reset. Like there's some foods that maybe we indulged in once or twice, but kind of feels better to just stay on a very like protein and vegetable heavy diet instead of all these other things that maybe we shouldn't be eating, except for maybe the one birthday ice cream or two that we've had. It's summertime, right? You just have to have it sometimes. And I just kind of love the idea of knowing this new health spa culture, like really more intimately. I think there's a lot of other places like that, like I said, in Germany and Austria, Hungary, and it would be really cool to see this resurgence of these kind of places in the US too, especially based on like the mineral waters, because this place didn't have that because they weren't in a mineral water town. But a lot of times when there's like a hot spring or some kind of natural mineral water system, it's one of the best places to do these kind of like health retreats, health spas. They do it in Japan, obviously, too. So I'm just super interested to keep an eye out for future things like this. I'll let you know how it went, obviously. Thank you for listening to my story about how much I hate parsley. And I hope you enjoyed just this little episode into how our summer went. Back in the US now, and I'm so excited to go full force with the launch of our certification program. We just opened doors to our 5X certification for the fall round, where you get certified as a mindset coach, an alcohol-free empowerment coach, a success coach, an NLP practitioner, and a hypnosis practitioner. This program has changed over 100 people's lives of becoming not only certified, but building their dream businesses, because it's one of the only certifications on the market that actually trains you to grow a business through our business retreat and our business mastermind. Literally, you have a retreat included in the certification. We get to hang out in SoCal together and your lodging is included. It is epic, where you get to sit in the mindset of a six-figure entrepreneur right then and there, right when you graduate, learn about actually doing the things that grow a successful and profitable business. So applications just opened. It does require an interview with me to make sure it's a right fit. We don't just allow everybody into the program. We've had to deny people in the past before. So be sure to submit your application. And then once we're on the interview, you'll see if you're accepted or not. And if you are accepted, you can ask any questions you have about the program, about what it's like, what results to expect, how to figure out your brand, all these things. And we have some really, really cool bonuses that we're going to be rolling out this year as well. So I'm so excited to share those. So be sure to tune in the next episode of Euphoric the podcast. Hope you had an incredible summer as well. It's not over yet. I always say, like, everyone gets back to school in like August. To me, like, summer doesn't really end until October, especially living in Southern California. It doesn't really even get warm sometimes until August, September, October. So I'm going to keep on enjoying my summer and hope you enjoy this episode.